All right, now let's look at how we can get from one of the forms of the equations to finding points or the slope or and to graph. Well, in this form you can read the slope straight out of it. It's -2/3 m, or the slope, and the y-intercept is -1 because y is solved by itself. And so to graph it using that information, the y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis, so it's saying it crosses at -1, and it has a slope of -2 for 3. So let's make a little table here to see what that's saying. And so we're finding a point. It says the y-intercept is -1. That means when x is 0, y is -1. And the slope says you can go down 2 in the y. So if I go down 2, I get -3. I can go up 3 in the x, which is 3. And so that says another point on this line would be at 3 and -3. And that's where the line goes. And I've generated another point. And that matches what we were doing earlier here. Okay? Now, if we had it this one, if you know it's in this form, you know that that's the slope. And you know it goes through the point. See, you're supposed to write y minus y1, so the y1 is 1. And you're supposed to be x minus the x1, so if it's a plus, it must be minus a -3. So we have a point it goes through, 1, -3. Oops, excuse me. The x is -3 and the y is 1. I said it, but I put it wrong. In the x coordinate is -3 and the y is 1. Darn, I always make little mistakes here. So -3 and 1 with a slope of down 2 over 3. And I always like to do at least a couple of steps on it. So down 2 and over 3, and we get the line that looks like this. Okay, which is the same as we had before. Now, if I have an equation like this, some of you would say, oh, that looks really hard to find a point and you can't read the slope. Well, I can read the slope. It's -2 because I put the numerator of the slope right here, and if I ignore the minus, and that's the denominator, so it's -2/3. But if you didn't do that, you can also just, if you have an equation like this and you're not used to reading them this way, you can get the a point by just saying, well, what's the x-intercept, which means make y be 0. So we have 3 divided by -2, which is 3 over -2, or so the x-intercept is -3 halves. -3 halves, right there, 1/2, 2/2, 3/2. And the y-intercept will make x be 0. So I got 3 divided by -3, which is -1. And I have the same line as I had before. And I do that by just getting intercepts. Let x be 0 and find the y-intercept. 3 divided by -3, -1. Find the x-intercept by letting y be 0. And 3 divided by -2 is -3 halves, and I've got the two intercepts, and I've got the graph.